What's going on, everybody? TripleCrown24 back today with a new Rewind episode here. Putting this out on Halloween. Happy Halloween to all those celebrating. It also is the first day of the Dallas Card Show for this go around. Funny enough, today we're talking about the Dallas Card Show. Well, kind of we're talking about it. We're talking about the Dallas Card Show in Northern Kentucky. It's the same people who put on the show down in Allen. They came up closer to my way to put on a 3-day weekend show at the Northern Kentucky Convention Center with some pretty big autograph signers as one of the main draws of the show. Ellie De La Cruz, Jamar Chase, and Bo Jackson are among some of the biggest names that I ran into, or at least I remember from this signing. Overall, it was a really solid show sales-wise. I think I made 6 or 7 purchases, and that's what we're going to go over today. I'm going to highlight 4 of them for you and then kind of give you a larger picture, more overarching view of the show, because there is something that I noticed while kind of getting the data ready for this episode that I think warrants discussion. Because this type of, I guess, when you're flashing big numbers out there, it doesn't always paint the full picture, especially in vlogs if they're more fast paced. Even in my vlogs, which I tend to say are a little bit slower pace. I pause the videos to talk about the deals and kind of try to go more in depth with each deal. Sometimes it isn't always as it seems. Let me just put it that way for now, and you'll see what I mean by that in a minute. If you want to go see the original vlogs, they are on the channel. I'll leave them linked in the description down below, but you can see them down there on my video feed. Why don't we start off with this one? This was a purchase that I made before the show. The biggest card in there was the Lamar Jackson Brilliance Blue Ice. You all know I love my blue ices out there. Even if they're ones not for my set, I do like to buy them for my showcases. The goal of this was really to get some cheap cards to restock my cases for the next 2 days of the show if I had a really good Friday. That's exactly what happened. And for what this deal was made for, it served its purpose, and it served its purpose well. I paid $90 for these cards in the video. I must have made a trade at some point in time with some of them because my cost in my spreadsheet is reflected as $80. That's just how I do trades. If I am adding or subtracting cash, I don't put that in as a sale or a purchase in my spreadsheet that I keep of all my data. Instead, I just adjust the original deal based on where the cash is being added or subtracted. Perhaps there's a more efficient way or a better way to reflect that those trades are going down, but it serves its purpose for what I need. $80 cost on this, $93.04 in sales, a profit of $13.04. About what I would expect on an $80 transaction. I'll settle usually for $90 that I can get out of it. The goal is typically closer to $100, but this is fine. I had cards to restock after the first day. I think there were 4 or 5 cards in this deal. In fact, I can look real quick at my sheet, and it tells me that there were 4 cards in this deal, which perfect. That's exactly what I needed to happen in this. So pleased with that one. Let's go ahead and move on into some larger cards. How about this AJ Styles 1-of-1? This one, a little different. I'm no stranger to getting some wrestling cards, and I'm no stranger to jumping on 1-of-1s. Wrestling for me is very much hit or miss. There are some times where it is insanely popular. I sell it better than baseball or football. There are also times where it is completely stagnant. Sometimes I feel that it has to do with the market. Maybe it's the time of year. I don't have an exact answer for it. I'm still trying to figure that part of it out. But 1-of-1s, looking back at my history, this is not to flex or anything, but I usually have a pretty good track record with 1-of-1s. And the reason I think for that is because a lot of times I find that most 1-of-1s I encounter are either way underpriced or way overpriced, which makes the decision-making process a lot easier on them, because usually right away in my head I can be like, okay, I'm going after that, or no, I need to stay away because I can't even really get in the door negotiating-wise. This one was priced very fairly. And this is a gentleman who I've done many deals with. He has a fantastic wrestling collection. Always brings me some nice higher end wrestling too. We've made several deals before. He knows who he is. He watches the videos. So, sir, thank you as always. On this AJ Styles, it ended up working out. I bought it for $100. I figured it would be a good showcase card. Didn't get asked about it in my showcase at all. I was wrong on that front. But as soon as I put it up on eBay, It was one of those that got attention right away. Took a little longer to sell it, but it did sell. And after all associated cost of fees and shipping, ended up with a $21.65 profit. That's about what I'm hoping for on this card as well. All things look pretty good at this point in time. I'm kind of just hitting my mark, meeting my expectations that I'm setting for myself when I'm making these deals, which to me is encouraging because when I am buying these cards, what I'm trying to do is figure out what I'm going to get out of them. What does the end user look like? What am I going to end up getting out of these cards? What is my cut going to be on them? Once I can figure that out and see it happening and actually getting those numbers back shows me that my evaluating is going well. I am accurately evaluating things because I don't want to under evaluate cards because that might mean I'm missing out on potential deals when they're coming up to me. You don't want to do that. And then I'm also not overvaluing cards, meaning I'm taking a bunch of losses. Also, don't want to do that. That one worked out. Let's go to this one. This one is very interesting to me. The Jamar Chase autograph lot. I have this Prism. This is the, I guess, forest camo, you can call it. They just call it regular camo. There's also the navy version. It was bundled with a few different cards. Here's the autograph on that Chase. These are numbered out of 15. You can see I got this Jamar Chase Contenders Optic auto, and then also this LeBron first pitch card. There was a fourth card in this deal that was a little bit of a smaller Chase. This one I was okay with. Let me show you. You're probably going to be like, oh, well, you made money on it. Why would you not be okay with it? Allow me to explain. $875 total cost. I really had to work to get down there. My sales on these cards ended up being $929.72. Profit of $54.72. Which sounds pretty good, but what I'm really looking at in a lot of these deals is my cost and then the time that it takes me to convey this purchase into a completed deal. Let's think about it this way. This $875, as soon as I make this purchase, is out of my bankroll. I can't use that money unless I sell those cards. That is challenging in some cases because if I have a really large card like that Jamar, I need to make sure that it's worth it, or I need to make sure that I'm going to have a buyer coming up right away. Now, in this case, I felt pretty confident because there were a lot of shows that I was doing. For example, I believe Xenia was the weekend after this one. There was also Shipshawana at the end of the month, which was a really large show. After Shipshawana, 2 weeks later, was going to be the Midwest Monster. I felt that in that 6-week time frame, I was going to find a buyer for the Jamar Chase. I wasn't moving too far away from the Cincinnati area. Also having the Jamar Chase auto, I thought helped out as well. The LeBron card, LeBron always sells for me, always has in the 5+ years that I've been doing it. I don't see that changing anytime soon, especially something that's a little bit more unique like this Upper Deck card here. That's why I went ahead and took the chance on it. And it ended up working out pretty well. I did move that Jamar a couple of weeks later. Ended up getting the number that I wanted for it. In fact, I think it was at the next Xenia show that I moved it. And it worked out in my favor, where I ended up with a $54 profit. Here's the thing, though. If that Jamar hadn't sold at the next Xenia show and I was holding it through, say, the Midwest Monster, and I held it after the Midwest Monster, all of that money that was tied up into that card could have gone into something else. That's something that I'm keeping in mind when I'm making these purchases, is that there are opportunity costs involved with this, meaning that because I spent that money on that Jamar Chase card, I now cannot go out and buy other things. And I think this is important whether if you want to try to flip cards. Bankroll management is incredibly important. I cannot understate that. But even if you are just buying cards for your collection, there is something to be said there where, say that you want to buy a hobby box of the new release, or you want to buy this single that just came out. And every time that you do that, because none of us have unlimited hobby dollars, there is some kind of associated opportunity cost, meaning you may not be able to buy this. Maybe a card you've been looking for a while pops up at auction on eBay, but you just bought something big. What are you going to do about it then? Because your hobby dollars, they're already gone, and you gave up that opportunity to go after that card as a cost for buying this. That's something I'm always keeping in mind, right? I want to make sure that my bankroll has enough where I'm not in that position where I am sacrificing good opportunities because, well, I didn't position myself to be able to purchase them or have the purchasing power for them. I never want to put myself in that position because when I first started out, there were several opportunities I could have had where I just didn't have the funds to do it. And that was frustrating back then. And I really don't want to ever be in that position. So there you have that. The last deal I made, this really goes back to it because this one took a little bit of time. It was for a Justin Jefferson autograph and then this Joe Burrow slab. I ended up paying $500, really had to work down for it. And as you can see, my sales on this, 505. Of course, this is better than breaking an even or taking a loss. Having $5 is better than not having that $5. But again, I spent that 500 on those two cards. Imagine what else I could have spent that 500 on in order to get more bang for my buck later on down the line. That's really what ties into kind of, I guess, my final overall point here. And I'll show you my win rate and margin rate here in just a moment. But these were the combined numbers for the entire show. I spent $17.20 and got $18.44 out of it. To me, that is not ideal. Of course, it's much better than losing. This margin is okay, but it's not even really 10% of what I spent. To me, 10% is the bare minimum that I want to be able to get for things. It might sound like I'm complaining that, I didn't make enough, but for me, these are the types of things that I have to look at when I am making these decisions. It's one thing to go out and buy cards like the Jamar and the Justin Jefferson autograph because it's exciting. It's exciting to go out and buy big cards. And part of what I do is it's fun. I get to buy cards that I otherwise normally wouldn't because I know that that money is going to come back in at some point in time. Whereas if I was just buying those for my collection, could I still buy those things? Sure. But it wouldn't be like this where I'm buying two cards like that in the same weekend. They'd be much more spread out, and it would probably be cheaper cards, to be quite frank. But overall, looking at this, look, this isn't a bad thing, but it's something that I keep in mind because there's a lot of times out there that you'll probably see people say that they spent X amount at a show. And I always tell people this too. Anybody could spend that kind of money at a show if you gave it to them, right? I mean, I'm really good at doing that. You give me 20 grand, I'll make sure it's all spent at that show. But what do you have to show for it afterwards is kind of the thing. Did you get a really cool card for your collection? Did you buy cards at a price that were profitable later on? These are the things that I don't always think get shown sometimes, and I'm guilty of it myself, where I'll show me buying some big cards. But this is why I do these rewind videos, and I know that they don't get the same viewership as perhaps, say, one of my regular vlogs. People also probably are not going to follow up on what I show in that video. But for those who are genuinely interested on it, I want to show you that this is what it more so realistically looks like. Now, admittedly, this isn't my best performance, I guess. I have been able to buy cards like that where the margin is closer to what I am aiming for on a lot of those cards. This happens to be one of those cases where it didn't quite work out, but I also think it's important to show you that too because I'm not perfect. I know that all the deals I showed here were profitable. I didn't make a purchase at the show that wasn't profitable, but it does happen. And in the next rewind, when I show you what happened at Shipshewana Memorial Day weekend, I have two deals that ended up being ones that I lost on. I think those will be interesting because I can kind of show you a little bit better on where I went wrong with certain things. But that's going to be it for today's rewind episode. I'm going to show you real quick. This is my win rate and my margin rate. It's a little bit down right now. I'm kind of adjusting my strategy. I felt like the market has kind of slowed since the national. I am kind of adjusting my strategy accordingly. But as part of that, it's going to take a little bit of a hit to my win rate for now. But I hope that that will help with my margin a little bit later on. But thank you so much for watching today's episode. I'll be sure to see you next week with a couple more vlogs. Until then, take care, stay safe, and be kind.